Hello again, Year 3. I hope you're well. We are going to start today with literacy, as always, and we're thinking a little bit more today about inverted commas and showing speech. First of all, though, kind of by popular request, yesterday I showed you these as a bit of a sort of demonstration of how important punctuation is, and that fact that if we aren't punctuating our work accurately, then the meaning that we're trying to convey to our reader can sometimes be lost. Now, I'd say these went over big in the classroom, so I thought I'd put in at least one more of these. Here is one from a doctor's surgery, and of course, like the sort of people on the reception, they will write down notes for what the sort of problem that someone's having is, and they would write down their sort of medical notes. And here's what one doctor got written for him. This patient, I think this would apply to anyone, really, wouldn't it? I think that hopefully should be two separate issues this person has rather than one. Okay, so moving on then. What can you remember about yesterday's lesson on inverted commas? Can you have a quick pause and try to remember in conversation all of the different sort of rules and elements that you need to know about inverted commas? What can you tell me about them? Okay, hopefully then you've remembered some of the things I'm about to talk through. So inverted commas go around anything that the characters or people that we're writing about are saying. So it's to do with speech. Anything that would come out of someone's mouth, that's what they're saying. And so it needs inverted commas around it. And those inverted commas, which look like this, they hug really tightly around that thing that the person is actually saying. Just a quick reminder for the mums and dads out there, you'll probably know them as speech marks or quotation marks. But the phrase that you'll hear in schools is always now inverted commas. We always call them inverted commas. That's those sort of speech marks or quotation marks. Inverted commas is the phrase that we use in school. So really good if you can match at home what the language that we use in school as well. If the speech would normally have a question mark or an exclamation mark in it, it still needs one, and that goes inside of the inverted commas. So have a look at the examples here. We've got, "Can I start writing now?" said B. "Only once you've learned the next bit," replied Mr. Vass. So again, the question mark in this case and the inverted comma down here, sorry, the exclamation mark down here, they're coming inside of the inverted comma. And the final little kind of fiddly rule that we looked at is that if the speech mark doesn't have a question mark or an exclamation mark, we do still need another punctuation mark to separate that from the rest of the sentence, or what we're calling the reporting clause. And so we do that with a comma. If it doesn't have a question mark or an exclamation mark, we need a comma to separate it from the reporting clause. So can you use what you've learned then, just to begin, by correcting these sentences? If you've got a bit of pen and paper, you could write down the real one, or you could just sort of point out the problems in these ones. But can you try to spot every element of this that isn't correct? Try to completely correct this and get it right and make sure this is accurate. And again, come back when you're done. You can pause the video here. So let's look at each of these in turn. And the first one says, "Can I come over to your house?" asked the girl. So first and foremost, I would say this is a question, isn't it? Can I come over to your house? And what do questions need? Question marks. And that's going to come inside of the inverted commas there. So I'm happy with that now. I think that's right. "Can I come over to your house?" asked the girl. Next one. "Sure, just don't tell my mum," whispered Martha. Now, a really good tip for inverted commas is if you're in any doubt, say it out loud as though you were kind of acting out as that character. Right, so if I was this character, I would say, "Sure, just don't tell my mum," whispered Martha. And of course, Martha wouldn't actually say "whispered Martha" at the end there. You don't come in the morning and say, "Hello, Mr. Vass, said me." That would be really weird, wouldn't it? So you don't have that reporting clause in the inverted commas. So we need to get rid of that bit. It's not going to come at the end there. It's going to come here. "Sure, just don't tell my mum," whispered Martha. Now, there's still a couple of bits we need to change. I wonder if you spotted them. Well, we're definitely going to want a capital letter at the start still. We're going to want a capital letter for Martha's name. That's a proper noun. Now, what's the other thing we need? There's one more thing in this sentence. Can you spot it? It's that we're going to need a comma here to separate our speech from the reporting clause. So one last bit there. And our third and final one, well, first and foremost, I can see that we've got there our capital letter missing. "I haven't been allowed back since I broke that plate," she replied. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's nearly there. There's one thing missing. What is it? It's the other inverted comma. Whenever we've got inverted commas at the start of a sentence, we also need some elsewhere to finish off that quote. In this case, it's there. The other thing that we looked at yesterday, I said that we were going to come back to this today and look at it in a bit more detail, was what I'd called the reporting clause. Now, it's a bit of a posh name, that, but really all I mean is the bit where we said who's said it and how they've said it. So yesterday we had this at the end of our sentences, and it would have been things like this. Said Maddie, replied Leo, shouted Thomas, whispered Poppy. It was a word that meant the same as said, and then the person's name. We put those two things together to make our reporting clause. Today, I'd like to look at that in a bit more detail. First thing I want to tell you is that you can actually put the reporting clause at the start of the sentence if you want to. So let's look at the kind of two versions there. Yesterday, we looked at sentences where the reporting clause was at the end and the speech came first. So it would have been things like this. Sit down, bellowed Mr. Vass. Oh no, replied Theorex. And there we had the speech first, and then our reporting clause, which in this case was bellowed Mr. Vass or replied Theorex, we had that at the end. But we can flip that order around if you want to. So I could have had, instead of sit down, bellowed Mr. Vass, I could have had Mr. Vass bellowed, sit down. And instead of, oh no, replied Theorex, I could have had Theorex replied, oh no. Now, important point here, is one better than the other? What do you reckon? Is one of these more impressive or better? I would say there's not necessarily any real difference here. It's not that one of these is kind of a much preferred, better option and one's worse. What I would say, though, is that it's good to have a bit of variety. Particularly if you have a lot of speech in your writing, it's good to mix it up a bit because it can get really boring if you say, hi, said so-and-so. Hello, said so-and-so. Nice to meet you, said so-and-so. Nice to meet you too, said so-and-so. It gets a bit boring. The structure's quite samey. So it's quite a good idea to have a mix of both. So one thing you can do then is put your reporting clause at the start of the sentence. Now, what did we say we always did? We always separated our reporting clause from our speech with a comma. So we're going to need that again here. We're going to need our commas in here to separate our reporting clause from our speech. Now, when we did it this way around, our reporting clause was sometimes separated by a question mark or an exclamation mark instead. That can't really happen when it's coming at the start, so it's going to be a comma. So Mr. Vass bellowed, comma, sit down. Theorex replied, comma, oh no. Now, if we needed it, we could still have our exclamation mark or our question marks inside the speech there, but they wouldn't come here. It wouldn't be like Theorex replied, oh no. So have a little look at this writing then. See what you make of this. We've got 4 sentences here. What do you think of the writing? Let me read it out. Hello, said Rosie. I'm going to the park on Sunday, said Marley. I'm really scared, said Luca. Emma said, I'm the champion. So obviously all of these are kind of different things. This isn't one fairly unusual story all in one go. This would be 4 separate sentences. What do you think of them? First of all, have they punctuated everything correctly? Yes, looking pretty good there. Have they got a nice variety of speech first and reporting clause first? I would say yes, because we've got these 3 where the speech bit is first, and we've got this bit at the end where we've got the reporting clause first. Is there anything, though, that we could improve? Is there one thing you think maybe we've kind of overused a little bit? What do you reckon? I would say probably the thing we could do better. We've used this word said quite a lot. Now, said is a pretty useful word, particularly when you're writing speech like we are and using inverted commas like we are, but it's pretty dull. I would actually go so far as to say I find it one of the most boring words in the English language, because there are so many ways you can say something. Think of a really talented actor and all the different ways that they might say something. Said is really quite dull. It doesn't actually tell you anything about how someone said something. Was it loud? Was it quiet? Was it excited? Was it a whisper? Was it a shout? Was it a bellow? Was it a roar? There are so many different ways you can say something. And I think said is pretty dull. So let's improve a bit on said. And let's actually think as well about all of the different ways we can improve our reporting clause. I've got a few top tips for you here. Now, this is not to say that you need to use all 4 of these at once, but these are 4 ways that we can kind of spice up or make a bit more exciting our reporting clauses. So one of them is we could use a synonym for said. Let me color code some of this. So I could use a synonym for said, and a synonym is another word that means the same thing or means very similar. So let's do this one at a time. Let's improve this one with that. So rather than said, what can I have instead of said? Right, I want a good synonym. Maybe you can think of some of your own that you can say out loud now. So I could have whispered, shouted, roared. I'm going to have yawned. I say that as someone that's just taught a classroom of kids coming back very, very tired from the weekend. I had a few yawned hellos at me this morning. Hello, Mr. Bass. Oh, didn't get much sleep yesterday. I had quite a lot of that today. So that's one way we could do it. We could improve our word choices. We could use a better word than said. Let's look at another one. We could add on an adverb. So if you are using said, let's see if we can add on an ly word to say how it was said. I'm going to the park on Sunday, said Marley. Also, not pluses. Said Marley somethingly. Can you think of a nice adverb I could put in there? An adverb is our describing words that say how a verb was done or say how a verb was performed. So in this case, we want to say how said, how it was said. So said's our verb. How was it said? I'm going to say, said Marley excitedly. Maybe you had a good one of your own. So that's one thing we can do. We can improve our reporting clause with a nice adverb. Something else we can do is we can describe our characters in a bit more detail. So, particularly with adjectives. So rather than said Luca, I'm going to actually improve this a little bit. I'm going to say said the ginger 8-year-old. I'm really scared, said the ginger 8-year-old. And that might be a nice way of improving our reporting clause, particularly if you've got a conversation between 2 characters. You don't want to say, said Fred, said Rosie, said Fred, said Rosie, said Fred, said Rosie. You want to mix it up a little bit. So maybe you could say, said Fred, said Rosie, said the 8-year-old girl, said the blonde-haired man, whatever. So that's quite a nice way that you can do it. You can mix things up a little bit by, rather than repeating the character's name again and again, you can actually describe them as something else. It's called a noun phrase. And another thing we can do, if you're feeling really ambitious here, we know all about fronted adverbials, don't we? So could you put a fronted adverbial at the beginning of your reporting clause? It's probably going to need to be one of these ones where the reporting clause comes first, but it could be something like this. While punching the air, Emma said, I'm the champion. That's a nice way to just kind of make our reporting clause that little bit more interesting, isn't it? So I think we've got 4 really good ways you can improve your reporting clause there. We could use a synonym for said, like yawned. You could put in an adverb on it, like excitedly. You could change your character's name for something else, like a description like this one. You could put a fronted adverbial at the start of your sentence. There's lots of different ways we can improve our reporting clauses. And today, that's what I want you to really focus on. Just want to really point out what our title is here, because this is the thing I want you to really do. We're writing speech with great reporting clauses. So I want you to really think today, as well as all your punctuation, which we learned about yesterday, I want you to use really great reporting clauses. So not just said so-and-so, because that's a bit rubbish. Let's try and improve that today and have some really good reporting clauses. Now, I've left up my top tips here. These were the 4 things I said you could do. Remember, you don't need to include all 4 in each sentence. You can mix and match a little bit. Here's your task. Today, I'd like you to write 10 more speech sentences about a topic of your choice. So you can write your sentences about anything. Now, my suggestions here, maybe you could write all of your sentences about things that might be said on a football pitch, for example. Or, one for B, maybe at a Little Mix concert, or your favourite singer or band. Or, one for lots of you, maybe it could be things that could be said during a Roblox game. So pick something that interests you, and then think about things that might be said or heard during that activity or event or interest. So if you absolutely love gymnastics, maybe it could be 10 sentences that you might hear while doing gymnastics. I want you to really aim to use some brilliant reporting clauses, both at the beginning and end of sentences, to make your writing more interesting. So here are my examples. After heading in the winner, the tall striker shouted, "Goal! Can we go home now?" sighed the Southampton fan sadly. So let's see what I've used there. Have I used some synonyms for said? Yes, I put in shouted there, and I've also put in sighed. So a couple of good synonyms for said. I didn't use that boring word said. Have I included any adverbs? Yes, I've put in here sadly. That's how they sighed. They sighed sadly. Is it possible to sigh excitedly? Maybe not. Have I described the characters involved in more detail? Ooh, yeah, I'll go for that. Yes, I have. I've got, instead of just, said Fred or whatever, I've put the tall striker. So I've got a sentence there with a nice adjective, tall. And have I put in a nice fronted adverbial? Well, again, yes, I have. I've got a nice one at the start there. I've got, after heading in the winner. Super. So there's a couple of nice examples. Hopefully you can come up with some great ones of your own. And again, this can be about anything you want. You can write about anything which interests you. Pick something that you're going to enjoy writing about and try to use this skill in some sentences there. So don't forget, please, all of your inverted comma punctuation learning from yesterday. Make sure they're still in there. But let's also today try to make your reporting clause that little bit more interesting as well. Okay, have fun with that. I will see you back for maths after this.